Thank you very much for having me, and thank you to the good folks at AirRock for allowing me to present today about the top hidden costs that surround runoff legacy systems. I think it's important to understand how I got here in order to show what type of expertise or understanding I might have when it comes to figuring out how to deal with these systems that are in many ways outdated, outmoded, and difficult to deal with. I'm Dave McAndrews from P1. I am the National Sales Director for P1 Runoff. We are the only data management platform that was built and born in Runoff, and we're proud of that title because of the fact that it gives us the ability to really understand what you guys are dealing with when it comes to legacy runoff systems. And I want to tell you that I have a PhD from maybe the only place that is more completely outmoded and dysfunctional than some of your very own legacy systems. You see, I know that many of you are dealing with systems that are held together with duct tape and baling wire. And I appreciate what you guys go through on a daily basis in order to make things work, in order to get the data and the information that you need on a regular basis and get it to the people who need it so that they can make actionable decisions. It's a difficult thing. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys is a process that I went through that really helped me to put all of this into perspective. What you see here is my very own poster family. Those are my 2 sons and 3 daughters, Ednair, Edwin, Tamara, Kinsey, and Kate. About 5.5 years ago, my wife and I decided to adopt 2 twin boys from Haiti, and we began down that path. And what I would learn is that bureaucracies, both foreign and domestic, and international courts and everything else can put such an amazing level of complexity and yet work with such amazing levels of inefficiency so as to absolutely boggle the mind. You see, we spent 4.5 years trying to get those 3 children home. And that was one of the most difficult processes imaginable. I'll give you a quick excerpt from that process. When we were in Haiti on our first visitation to meet the kids, we went to IBESR, which is the Haitian Adoption Authority. And we went into their offices, and while we were at the offices, we actually had an opportunity to go back into one of the back offices where supposedly the work actually gets done. And that office was a tight, we'd probably call it a wide hallway that had about 8 desks in it, 4 on each side. And you could just about swivel your hips to get in between the rows of desks. And on those desks were computers. So 8 desks, 8 computers, but only one of those computers was actually on. And the computer that was on was playing video pinball. So we could see what we were really up against in that moment and the difficulty that would come in this process. And on top of just the complete ineptitude of the particular office, Haiti was going through the process of becoming Hague compliant, which is a good thing. They are trying to adapt to the international standards for adoption. But our problem was we were stuck smack in the middle of our old process when they decided to invent an entirely new process, a process that they were just going to stumble along and figure out as they went on. Now, this may seem unrelated to the insurance industry, but I can promise you, after taking a look at many different legacy runoff systems, that it's not that different. Many of you are dealing with changes and upheavals within your organization and trying to get old equipment and old systems to cooperate and operate within a completely different paradigm than it was designed. Now, I can tell you that our story does have a happy ending. Or at least so far, we brought the three little guys here home almost exactly a year ago, after 4 years of really struggling with that process. And the good news for you guys who are dealing with legacy data management systems is the fact that there are things that you can do in order to modernize and in order to shortcut some of the issues that are incumbent on having a legacy data management system. And that's what we're going to go into today, is exactly how, what you may be able to do in order to improve the function of your current system and maybe some system options that you can look at in the future. Though it's tough to compare with the inefficiency of Haitian bureaucracy, legacy insurance data management has some pretty significant inefficiencies in its own right. And because of some of those inefficiencies, it is really difficult to nail down the true cost of operating legacy data management systems. Typically, it's a fairly simple equation. X number of dollars per month for the payment to such and such a system. Y is the maintenance cost for that legacy system. And then Z, which is your server or mainframe cost. But that is really just the tip of the iceberg of what the true costs for maintaining a legacy system really are. In fact, the costs that exist out past the system cost, the maintenance cost, and the actual equipment cost can be some very significant pieces of information that you need to know about. Let's start with the creation of Frankenstein's monster. The way that systems get put together with duct tape and baling wire in order to adapt to the business needs that you have to respond to. Because these systems are put together in such a way, it makes it so that you lose one of the biggest potential competitive advantages, the ability to leverage all of your data. We talk about this concept of big data a lot within the industry. But the reality is that most companies cannot leverage big data. And what is the real reason for that? The most obvious reason is, of course, the fact that the information that is needed to be leveraged is spread across multiple systems that are incapable of communicating with each other without some sort of bridge being built. And then that bridge has to be maintained. The way it happens is someone from the organization says, we need to work around this system. And IT wants to do their job. They want to do what is needed. They want to be able to bring the information to the users. So they Frankenstein a workaround procedure in order to make up for the system inequity. Unfortunately, when that happens, the net result tends to remain the same: an inability to harness the power of big data across the width and depth of all of the systems. You create one bridge, and it just really highlights the need for many additional bridges to be built. But IT does not have the bandwidth in order to build them all in-house. After all, we're talking about a lot of systems: policy, claims, ceded reinsurance, document management systems, cash management systems. And each of these systems were probably built in slightly different eras with slightly different business needs. And because of that, it makes it extraordinarily difficult for the IT professional to do the job that they want to do, to get the information to the business user. So the question becomes, do you want to plug the leak or do you want to fix the hole? And the only way to fix the hole is to look at a holistic approach to fixing the entire system or ecosystem that surrounds the data and the information in the data management. This begs the question, why are there so many standalone systems? And the reality is that it comes down to a couple of simple reasons. And they are fear and hubris. When I'm talking about fear, when it comes to patching or having your own individualized or company-specific data management system, it is a fear of competitive loss or a fear of not adapting to the beautiful individual snowflake that each company is. But the reality of that fear is it is often very unfounded. The second potential is hubris. We are XYZ company. We know what we're doing. We do it better than anyone else. And because of that, it creates a mentality that leads to building one-off systems that hopefully will work going into the future. But that is not generally the way it works. I will simply state that it is important for you as organizations to avoid the pitfalls of fear and hubris in order to make the best decisions for your company. If you can avoid those things, then you are going to avoid some of the latter difficulties that come with managing legacy systems. The next major topic is cybersecurity and the shortfalls of legacy system when it comes to making sure your data is safe. First, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Windows XP. I don't know how familiar you are with that particular operating system. I'm sure you have used it at some point in your life. But what you may not know is that a couple of years ago, when Microsoft decided to discontinue providing support for Windows XP, it was the operating system that was being used on roughly 70% of all bank ATMs and another 80% of all diagnostic medical imaging equipment. That is to say that basically all ATMs were readily hackable because the biggest IT giant, or one of the biggest IT giants in the world, decided to stop supporting Windows XP. And it was not like you could just go to your local ATM store or go to the manufacturer of the equipment that you used and get a new one. This was an expensive and difficult problem that a lot of people had to work to overcome, and some still have not overcome. Chances are that if you are maintaining a legacy data management system, you are not keeping up with the cybersecurity needs of the modern data management. You just aren't. The reason for this is that the way that Microsoft had patched Windows XP for as long as it had was it had a team of experts going out and making changes to the code every time there was a new issue exposed. I don't really care whose team we're talking about here. The expertise that we're talking about in terms of high-end cybersecurity does not exist on that team, and nor should it, nor should that be the expectation. To give you an example of how P1 gets around this particular issue, we utilize modern Microsoft platforms, such as the Microsoft Azure Cloud, which is backed by a team of cyber experts, and it's written on a .NET framework on a readily accessible SQL database. So this is a very different setup that allows for you to have a lot of flexibility and a lot of coverage when it comes to the concept of keeping your data safe. From the futuristic cyber world, we will move back into the past. The past that is led by giants like Henry Ford. When Henry Ford developed the assembly line, his concept was that each person would become an expert within a very specific area of knowledge so that they could perform a task as quickly as humanly possible. Much of our educational system, as well as much of our management practices, are still based on this type of concept. Unfortunately, that's really not the way anyone outside of a factory still works today. It no longer looks like this. Line worker number 12 no longer screws in these 4 bolts connecting the door to the frame. And in fact, in the type of jobs and situations that we deal with in insurance, we expect people to be well adapted across many different areas and typically to be cross-trained in order to be functional at their jobs. The majority of those jobs have been automated. The Western workforce has been retooled in such a way that they would not be able to function in that type of environment. The industrial economy has given way to service and knowledge economies. And if you treat a knowledge worker like you would treat an industrial worker, you are going to get very poor results, because that is not the way that they are trained to think, nor is it the way they desire to think. I hate to tell you, but the majority of people managing teams that deal with this type of data are using very old techniques that need to be updated. And the way to do that is to allow many of those rote processes that suck immense amounts of time and energy and really kill the spirit of your modern knowledge worker. Those things need to be automated so that those functions are done by computers rather than through manual data entry. Industrial assignments like data entry can be debilitating to the morale of a knowledge worker employee. Let's take it a step further. Rather than what Henry Ford desired, which was a reduction of mistakes by allowing for someone to specialize in such a small area, when it comes to this type of manual data entry, Redundancy actually leads to an increased amount of mistakes. The likelihood of your information to be flat wrong goes up dramatically every time a person has to touch it. You want to have that information automated as much as humanly possible because the error rates are going to be much lower. This was the reason that we at P1 developed the AIM module, the automated interface module, to take those chances for redundancy and chances for multiplication of errors and remove the human element from that and allow for simple transfer of data by creating those gateways to make it so that those errors would not happen. Computers are doing the work rather than manual workarounds. Here are a few examples of areas where this AIM module can be utilized in order to reduce those error rates. Exchange rates, cash entries, claim and premium accounting entries, on-demand access to seeded recovery potential. These can all be automated so that you do not have multiple entries across multiple systems the way that it is probably currently done in many of your data management systems. Now we're going to get into some more nuts and bolts reasons that it is important to let go of legacy data management systems. And really, I want you to focus in on two primary factors when we're talking about this. And those two factors are the machine element and the human element. Do machines have a lifespan? The reality is that if parts were available and people were available to continue to maintain systems and maintain machines, they could go on living indefinitely. However, by virtue of the ongoing and exponential rate of improvement of computer machinery, the likelihood of that happening is very low. And what happens is you start having a lack of replacement parts as well as a lack of people that know and understand the system well enough to affect the necessary changes you need on them. I'm guessing that you probably don't have a great grasp on how to replace a motherboard from 1984. But you probably have a really good understanding of the career arc of the IT professionals that are currently maintaining legacy systems. So if they started in the 60s, they're either retired or retiring very soon. Started in the 70s, retiring very soon. Started in the 80s, often in the top pay bracket, or maybe starting to consider retirement. So all of these folks, the folks who know or built or really deeply understand all of these systems, or many of these systems out there, are getting very close to retirement age. And there's a pretty good chance that the system that you have currently is under the threat of system retirement. So why not just hire someone younger to do the work? Well, if they start in the 90s, they're probably not very happy about maintaining this old of system. And they are probably figuring out ways to learn new things so that they can have the experience necessary to find the next new job. And if they started in the 2000s, the thought of beginning a job working on a legacy system is almost unthinkable. In fact, when you tell them that mainframes are still a thing, unless they are computer science history majors, they probably are not fully understanding exactly what you mean. But somehow you have to figure out a way to bridge between the past, that is the legacy system, and the future system that you need to adapt to in order to be successful with your employment plan going forward. And this point brings us into what I call the enigma of insurance company information systems. You may recognize this movie. It is The Imitation Game, in which case they are talking about the computer, the mainframe computer that was able to break the Nazi code, the Enigma code, in World War II. And the very first, the inventor of the computer, or at least the computer age, Alan Turing, is pictured in this movie, and it shows how they were able to do this with this incredible machinery. Now, one of the things that's interesting about the insurance business is, because there was a lot of money in insurance, they were really one of the pioneers of the information age. In fact, the cutting-edge thinking and the creation of the mainframe really transformed the insurance industry. The ability to calculate actuarial tables and automate many insurance processes in order to figure out how to better maintain risk really changed the way that the insurance companies did business. And this is not lost on me because of the fact that at the very beginning of the computer age, insurance companies really and truly led the way. So what has made it difficult for the insurance industry to keep up? Well, particularly when we're talking about runoff, we're talking about a business that, as opposed to a startup in Silicon Valley, which has a lifespan that could go over a handful of years, an insurance company is really looking out 50, 100 years. And because of that viewpoint, you tend to have information technology that is very old, that is married and patched and continues to evolve over time. Beyond the model itself, the fact that there is a system, there is money, it's working, it's doing its thing, there becomes somewhat of a frog in the kettle type of situation, where it is the way that things have been done for so long, so why not just keep doing them that way? But that, of course, as we described in the previous sections, is a pretty dangerous position to be in. Finally, allowing IT departments to spend the time and resources just keeping things together, instead of letting them loose on taking care of new problems or different problems, the people who could actually operate and maintain that change are spending all of their time revisiting and retooling the past. This is one of the reasons that we get excited about the P1 service line, is it allows a bridging of the gap between these older systems of the past and the modern data management systems of today. So as a recap, the hidden costs of maintaining and operating legacy data management systems start with dumb data. Multiple systems that lack the ability to communicate naturally suck time, money, and resources as well as the primary competitive advantage of big data. Next, we have the cyber threat. And as Dr. Evil would say, you could have ransomware for $1 million. Or much worse, have the public discontent that comes with a data breach in a company that is supposed to be a harbinger of stability and responsibility. That can be extraordinarily costly for any insurance company. Number 3, and I do not think that this one can be overestimated, is employee dissatisfaction. If you are operating an old system that is a dead end as far as careers are concerned, the people that you are counting on to be responsible for maintaining those systems are going to look for a way out and a different avenue to bring their expertise in. Either that, or they may be just riding it out to retirement. Either way, I don't think you have very good options. Number 4, of course, is system manager retirement. The fear of the people who are the lifeblood of your data management system not being available to you going forward. And whether that shows up in the form of a health emergency or a planned retirement, it is still something that is extraordinarily difficult to overcome. And then, of course, you have just simple time and money. Doing nothing and waiting for the runoff system to run off. But the reality in that is the majority of the people that I have met in this industry have been working in the industry, and many on the same book of business for the past 15, 20, 30 years, and it still has not run off. The longevity of runoff is always greater than people imagine initially. And the reality is, it is important to make the changes sooner than later, because the longer you wait, the more time and money you are wasting. So to recap, the greatest hidden costs that surround maintaining legacy data management systems are: number 1, dumb data due to lack of communication between multiple systems. 2 is cyber threat, because your team was not built to be a world-class anti-hacking operation. Number 3, employee dissatisfaction due to the utilization of older systems and redundancy of input of work. Number 3, the threat of system manager retirement. And then number 4, the threat of the loss of time and money because of the fact that you are unwilling to do anything. With that, I bring you to the 5 things that you can do to improve your insurance data management today. I like to share these lessons that really we built P1 on in order to help companies really around the industry to understand how to manage better. We have some very hard-learned lessons that I think can be very beneficial to each of you to bring home to your teams. And I think that you will have some good benefit implementing any or all of these. Number 1, keep it simple. You do not want to be the policeman on the pogo stick. Every company at one time or another falls into the fallacy that they are a beautiful snowflake. They are unique and have needs that no other company before them has had. The reality is that that type of mentality really points to what we talked about with Dr. Frankenstein and the hubris. The belief that you are different than everyone else causes you to build up this ultra customized code or integrations that really handcuff you to the past, instead of liberating you and allowing you the flexibility that you need in order to move into the future. So whenever possible, move towards the lowest common denominator rather than the least common denominator. That is a lesson that can apply to many areas, but when we're talking about systems, it is a foundational key. Do not drink your own Kool-Aid. Do not drink the Kool-Aid. Do not read your press clippings. You can do something very good with methodology that comes off the shelf rather than locking yourself into a prison of your own design. Number 2, less is more. When attempting to improve your legacy system, less is almost always more. Avoid large committees and select 3 to 5 person working teams so that there can be clearly delineated lines of responsibility. Remember, if everyone is responsible, then no one is responsible. This is a management principle for the ages. In order to find, if you want to get something done, make it one person's responsibility and then hold them accountable to achieving whatever goal they set forth. Having small groups with enough power and enough say-so to be able to bring in change will get you much further, much faster than just about any other methodology. The one thing you really want to be careful, though, in this is when you give people and you give a committee, a small group, the power to make critical changes, do not then give managers the capability to come in and undercut their work. If you hired good people and those good people are there to do the job and they want what's best for the company, they are going to produce a good result. However, if you come in and second guess them and armchair quarterback their work, the likelihood is the ongoing work that they continue to do is going to be diminished and is not going to have the same level of quality, the same level of effort, the same level of excellence than it would have had if they were given the authority and autonomy to make the changes that they wanted to make in the beginning. The next point is the ability to look for small wins along the way. When we talked about the 2 reasons that companies enact things the way that they do or put things together the way that they do, fear and hubris, the opposite side of fear of allowing someone else to do the work is fear of doing the work at all. And the reason that people have this fear is because the task is so large and the hill is so daunting that taking those first steps seems really difficult to do. That is why it is critical that you get the big mo. You get momentum. And the way that you build momentum for large-scale projects such as this one is to develop in the path of that project, small wins that are readily or easily achievable that can then be built upon, so that you will have that institutional memory of the small win, so that when the next hill comes, it does not seem so big. It does not seem so daunting. It is incredibly powerful to be able to look back and see what has already been accomplished. So put in those milestones in the plan. If you put those milestones in, it is much easier to maintain the momentum throughout the entire course of the project. Next, we have encourage cross-pollination. And by this I mean allowing the IT side and the business side of your organization to work well and communicate together in a team mentality so that you will have the best results. In many organizations, the IT and business side of the organization are completely siloed off. This is a critical mistake. If IT is building for the sake of the business side without proper depth of understanding, the system will simply not live up to the hopes of the organization. But if you can pair IT and business folks together and do so in a mentor-mentee type of relationship where you have people in different stages of their career, you will find that you can achieve the best of both worlds. You will be able to drive the internal innovation while gaining some of the benefits of mentorship on the side. This mentality is really something that has been able to set P1 apart. And in fact, in one of our recent demos, we had the strong compliment of one of the people that we were demoing to state to us that they had never had a vendor who really understood what they do. And this is something that we're extremely proud of, and we believe should be the way that all IT departments within insurance companies should be created. Because after all, the reason IT is there is to benefit the business elements of the organization. And if you can make that happen seamlessly, you win. And of course, another thing that you might consider doing is choose P1 to help bridge the gap. P1 stands for the power of one, and we are proud to be the only data management platform that was born in runoff. When you choose P1, you can retire all of your legacy systems in favor of a single, robust, modern insurance data management platform, eliminating the drain on both your IT staff and budget, and alleviate the top 5 hidden costs of legacy systems. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I greatly appreciate any time that I can share some of the things that we have learned over the years, and I hope some of this has been beneficial for you and you can take it back to your organizations and start affecting change to really help alleviate some of the difficulties that come with maintaining legacy systems. Thank you and have a great week.